grew up in the dry state of Arizona in the early 2000s, chances are you ran across a unique fast food restaurant. A restaurant known as Fazoli's. It was a fast food joint that let you dine using real silverware and ceramic plates. A restaurant that was drastically different from the competition. One known for their legendary endless breadsticks and cheap Italian cuisine. This restaurant's appeal became a natural attraction to the locals and visitors alike. To families looking for an easy meal for their children on a weeknight. And throughout Arizona, spanning 13 locations, this restaurant's legacy was cemented in the minds of frequent customers. But in 2008, every location was shut down, with Nevada and Utah to follow shortly after. And while the downfall of the Italian fast food giant was devastating to Arizona locals, it left a burning question in many. What happened to cause the collapse of Fazoli's? Let's take a look at the history of the restaurant and the rise and fall of Fazoli's in Arizona. Fazoli's was founded in 1988, starting with 5 locations in the Lexington, Kentucky area, which is where every Italian joint originates from. Even though Italian food was ahead of its time for the late 80s, Fazoli's saw rapid growth in the subsequent years. By 1992, Fazoli's had 35 locations spanning Kentucky, Indiana, and Florida. Boy, Florida was in for a treat. Who keeps feeding the gators breadsticks? Within these successful years, Fazoli's locations were earning massive revenue from customers. Upwards of $1 million was earned per year from each restaurant. Looking back, the past few years, Fazoli's seemed to be pushing the market in a successful direction. Which is why I'm confused that these financial reports say press X to doubt. Yeah, so it turns out Fazoli's expanded far too fast and ran into some mishaps in the early 2000s. In 2006, Seed Restaurant Group, the then owner of Fazoli's, sold the company to Sun Capital Partners for an undisclosed amount of money. With this change came a swap of CEOs and then another swap in 2008. By that time, Carl Howard had just been handed a ticking time bomb in the form of limited breadsticks. You see, Fazoli's had reached a peak of 400 locations in 2004, but the numbers were on a steady decline from there. Previous management had cut costs, replacing real silverware with plastic, dropping food quality, and even eliminating the unlimited breadsticks. I mean, how am I gonna loiter now? Clearly, the brand had shifted focus on speed and price, leaving it to become archaic and stagnant. However, Howard assessed the situation and knew what he had to do. Howard revamped the whole menu, refreshing the look of the restaurant and even bringing back the unlimited breadsticks. Great, I can loiter again! Although Howard initially received pushback from leadership at Sun for these changes, his plan was successful enough to push the company back into the green by 2012. Since the company rebounded so nicely, it must mean the Arizona locations got an upgrade too, right? Yeah, they did! This one turned into a shoe store! Yeah, so it turns out back in 2008 when Fazoli's hit a snag, many of the franchise locations decided to pull out. In Arizona, there were 13 franchise locations in total. Now if I just check my numbers here, they should show me exactly how many locations were corporate. Well, at least it's not in the negatives. It's too bad all of the Arizona locations were owned by one man, because a broader distribution might have kept the franchise alive in the state. Mark Levitt, CEO of Iowa-based Nellis Management Co., shut down all 13 of his Arizona locations in one fell swoop. While Long John Silver jobs were offered to employees from the 12 Phoenix locations, those who worked at the single Flagstaff location just had to make origami out of their last paycheck. Look, it's Gex! Levitt cites lackluster sales and high advertising/retail costs as the reason for the closures, but there has to be more to it. And sudden closure of every location just doesn't sit right with me, and I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. (2008) The rain was pouring as the monsoon raged on in an otherwise dry state, all while one restaurant met its untimely demise.
Experience something extraordinary. Real Italian, cooked good and slow, but served real fast.
Fazoli's remained a fan-favorite restaurant to locals, even as the buildings grew stale. It seemed to be pretty popular for its time. Throughout the restaurant's lifespan, people would stop by for a bite to eat. But by mid-July, all that was left of the stores was a sign that read, closed for business in Arizona. Bizarrely, it seems that nearly every article pertaining to the closure of the Arizona locations has been scrubbed from the internet. All that remains is an article published by the Arizona Daily Sun and a blog post by Callie Waterhouse on a website known as Active Rain. While the Arizona Daily Sun article yields a sensible explanation, the evidence found on Active Rain is fascinating. While many comments below the initial blog post are from disappointed patrons, a few of them suggest that something more sinister was at play. This is disappointing for sure, but it's not altogether surprising considering that tomato scare of 2008. It surely was going to impact the business at Fazoli's the most. I mean, their logo is a huge friggin' tomato. A comment from the user K suggests that the demise may have to do with the tomato scare of 2008. The tomato scare was a period of time when tomatoes disappeared from restaurants and store shelves due to a salmonella outbreak. While Fazoli's must have been impacted by the scare, that wouldn't have been enough to tank the franchise. But as we delve deeper into the comments, we stumble upon a disgruntled comment from a former employee. Fazoli's was poorly ran, and many of the stores were literally dirty pits until they suddenly realized they needed to turn them around or close. Unfortunately, it was too late. The cleanest most of the stores had been since they opened was probably in the first 6 months of operation. I had never worked for an operation that had such bizarre standards, worked with their crew like dogs for pennies, and had such cheap products to offer. Some of the stuff was good, but oftentimes the products were rotated incorrectly or simply subpar. The meat sauce was only 20% meat, the Alfredo sauce was runny, the sandwich meats were composite, and they focused on weird stuff like drive-through times, inventory every night, weighing out cheese, meat, etc. to the ounce, everything. The politics in the restaurant were trashy, and many of the managers were dishonest and had no problem shysting another for their own gain. Nellis management now pretends that it has never dealt with or heard of Fazoli's. Their one super duper big screw up. In their comment, Nadia cites many points of failure within the Fazoli's formula. A restaurant with seemingly low standards, a focus on speed over service, and poor food quality. All of the evidence seems to add up with what we already know about the cost-cutting of previous management. However, there's one section of the comment that I just can't shake. Nellis management pretending like they never owned a Fazoli's in the first place. So what was Nellis trying to hide? 3 words. Long John Silver's. Looking at the website for Nellis management today yields a very cruel reality. They only own 2 franchise locations in Arizona, and both of them are Long John Silver's. The fact that Nellis offered their Fazoli's employees jobs at Long John Silver's, their only franchise business in Arizona, just seems too convenient. And to top it all off, the original manager of Fazoli's, Jericho Inc., sold the restaurant so they could focus on a certain fast food restaurant. That's right, Long John Silver's. It seems that the breadsticks of today are being replaced by the fish sticks of tomorrow, and Arizona was just the first target. But seriously guys, can we just agree that the breadsticks were delectable and move on? Some of these comments are downright hilarious to skim through. Like, Meryl, I think a KFC and a Chinese buffet are likely candidates to close in any state. The economy just probably eased their pain a bit. I mean, I know the economy took a huge hit in 2008, but some of them are acting like Fazoli's is a catalyst or something. That's right, boys and girls, eating out at a fast food Italian restaurant is a luxury. And I don't know about you guys, but this whole small business spiel doesn't really apply to a Kentucky chain with 13 Arizona locations. I'm also not sure what weighing cheese has to do with food safety, but Nadia's comment has me slightly worried for the food that my 6-year-old body was subjected to. I mean, don't get me wrong, Fazoli's has gone in a much cleaner and tastier direction since then, but the interior of the former locations still haunt me. From what I can tell, many locals, including myself, never necessarily had a bad experience. But, I'm gonna be honest guys, I really don't understand the obsession. Well guys, I really would like to mourn the death of Fazoli's in Arizona, but as it turns out, this story does have a happy ending.
The company announcing online it's making its return to the Grand Canyon State. The first Phoenix location is going to open this fall.
Fazoli's has partnered with Arizona company Kind Hospitality to bring 9 restaurants back to the valley. Now, if you excuse me, my tummy has the rumbles for some buttery breadsticks. Even though the company is coming back to Arizona, it really gets my nipples tangled to find out that the first location will be in the airport. That's like leading a horse to water, only to wave the water in its face and throw it out with the baby and the bathwater. I mean, you'd think after 13 years of waiting, the Arizona residents would deserve a faithful reunion with their saucy maiden. But now it's locked behind a boarding pass and an overglorified human Scantron machine. So while it is possible to get Fazoli's in Arizona, it's not like it's in some sort of openly accessible location. You'd have to shell out fat wads of dough before even considering getting your grubby hands on an all-you-can-eat breadstick display. Today we're going to be making breadsticks from the famous fast food Italian chain, Fazoli's. We'll start with a whole bag of all-purpose flour, some granulated salt, and a teaspoon of water. Now we tiny whisk that together. On February 27, 2023, the first Arizona Fazoli's location opened up for the first time since 2008. After the initial announcement on Twitter in 2022 and the disappointment of the location, the community breathed a collective sigh of relief. But just like all other locations, the current Fazoli's doesn't tell the full story. The journey of how they got there shows the dedication, perseverance, and craving for cheap Italian fast food that the community has. It was the outcry from Arizona residents that caused the restaurant to make a comeback. It was Carl Howard's decision to make the company appealing that brought the finances back. And it was the perseverance of a 15-year-long wait that led us back to infinite breadsticks. This has been the history of Fazoli's in Arizona. Thanks for watching. What was that? April Fools? No, I'm just trying to get sponsored. Yeah,